Welcome, welcome! It's my dog with the Texas Space Navy bringing you another Star Citizen video. And today I thought I would bring you one of the articles that they recently posted that I find interesting. You can see here on the front page of the RSI site, that's robertspaceindustries.com for you guys. They have a lot of fun, interesting things going on right now. But what I wanted to bring you was the foundational moments in human history. It's kind of like a good little lore piece that the probably the lore team probably put up. Actually, they probably posted that as one of the Comm-Links or transmissions. So let's take a closer look. Now, this is the foundational moments in human history, and I'm kind of going to read some of these because, well, that's how we're going to talk about them. But it says, that's a wrap for the Foundation Festival 2950. Throughout month-long celebration, we saw countless veteran pilots rising to the occasion to help other new players take to the skies for the first time in Alpha 3.10. Thank you to everyone who participated as a guide, and welcome to all the new players who have just recently taken your first steps into the verse. We have a handful of prizes to give out for our top guides, and we'll be announcing the winners of the crew contest in the near future, so stay tuned for more info. To cap off an awesome month celebrating Star Citizen community, the month's infographic takes a look at the triumphs in human history and gives you a peek into how we got there in 2950. So this is really cool. I love it. It gives you a snapshot of human history through the verse. And of course, you got some really cool pictures. We've got a javelin here with an Idris in the background and another Idris in the background. And then the very first thing, we have a Carrack here, which doesn't really line up with the year, because in 2075, Dr. Scott Childress and his team at RSI complete the first self-sustaining quantum drive engine. So that's only, what, 55 or 35, 55 years from now? Pretty cool. In 2113, RSI patents terraforming technology. So RSI is definitely on the cutting edge of technology in the early years here. In 2120, the first attempt at terraforming Mars begins, and with 2125, a catastrophic failure of the terraforming process kills 4,876 workers. It was a serious tragedy, but it did not set us back too long. In 2140, RSI releases the first commercially available starship, the Zeus, for short-range exploration. In 2157, Mars is successfully terraformed. A memorial is built honoring those killed in the Mars tragedy. So back in 2120, terraforming begins. We didn't get it right for 37 years. It took 37 years to actually terraform Mars. That's still kind of a quick time, if you ask me. I don't know. I mean, you could ask some experts today how long it would take to actually terraform certain planets. I'm sure they would take hundreds of years, or they would say hundreds of years. So RSI is definitely ahead of the curve here. Ebini Okan is born in Port Renatus, Mars, marking the first human born on another planet. Now, 2157, you're talking 137 years from now, roughly, is when this dude was born. So, do you think that's going to line up with reality? I actually think we'll have somebody born on Mars before that in reality, but hey, this is a game. They can write their own story. I'm all for it because I've written my own story in the verse as well. So, we'll get to that eventually, not this video. But yeah, pretty cool. 2214, RSI releases a new engine, allowing for faster quantum travel and further exploration of the Sol system. So again, RSI is still the one that's putting out all this technology. 2232 to 2262, various ships inexplicably disappear in an area of space known as the Nesso Triangle, causing the government to declare it a no-fly zone. So this area, there's something going on here, and they don't know what's going on, but there are still people that are, I guess you could say, living on the seat of their pants and trying to figure it out. It's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle here, between Bermuda, the United States, and I guess the Bahamas area, where things inexplicably disappeared for much of the middle of the 1900s without any actual idea why that was happening. Of course, there's all sorts of speculation. They think they found bits and pieces here and there of different ships, planes, and etc. But this is no different. They're disappearing here in this 2232 to 2262 in this area called the Neso Triangle. In 2271, so that's 9 years here after the last one disappeared, I guess you could say, Nick Croshaw discovers the first jump point within the Neso Triangle, becoming the first human to successfully travel to another star system and return to tell the tale. He was able to navigate through this wormhole, I guess you could say, or jump point, and back, which has never been done before. These people who were disappearing were obviously going into the jump point and not being able to successfully maneuver through it. At least we don't know. They just disappeared. Most likely they weren't able to either get through the first way or get back. Just don't know. In 2380, which is 109 years later, the human colonial expansion era begins as humanity expands into the stars, searching for new jump points. The United Nations of Earth is formed. In 2438, humanity makes first contact with the Banu alien species. General Neil Sokolovich and the UNE delegates negotiate the first intergalactic peace and trade treaty with them. So you can see this is a good 150 years. Well, actually, it's more than that. 160 something years here between Nick Croshaw's discovery of the first jump point and humanity running into the Banu species. So a lot could have happened in that time as far as technologically, advancements and stuff for humanity in space, because that is a long period of time there. In 2516, the UNE continues expanding into the new star systems and discovers an untouched Earth-like planet, which they name Terra. So Terra is going to be a very important player in the persistent universe. There's a lot of people that want Terra to become the new capital of the United Earth Empire. So it is definitely something that's become important in lore for Star Citizen. And it will continue to be important. Terra is going to be really beautiful. That's where Origin has its offices. It's going to be a really cool planet. I can't wait to actually see this thing in game. It's going to make pretty much all the other planets that we've seen so far look silly. I mean, it's going to be beautiful. So, of course, we'll have to wait and see that. In 2523, which is only really, 7 years later, 70% of humans are living off Earth and in multiple star systems. The UNE restructures itself to become the United Planets of Earth. So restructures. That sounds like it's a corporation and not, a state, or a nation, I guess you could say, or a conglomerate of them. I don't know. I'm being nitpicky, but yeah. In 2530, humanity makes first contact with the Xi'an species. After initial misunderstandings, a Cold War of sorts begins between the UPE and the Xi'an Empire. And this would go on for decades or centuries. I mean, all the way up into 2950, it's still somewhat of a Cold War. It's just a lot less, or a lot warmer. Now, warmer relations with the Xi'an Empire 400 years later. That's crazy. And some of the Xi'an that were alive during this time are still alive. Yeah, think about that. That's how long-lived the Xi'an are. Whereas, like the Banu, we discovered them in 2438. That's almost 100 years later that we finally made contact with the second alien species. And the Xi'an they're maybe more technologically advanced than humanity, but humans make up for it in willpower and, I guess, determination maybe, or industrial might, if you might say that. In 2541, the Elysium system and the Tavaran species are discovered by Dr. Keller Lynch. The Tavaran quickly attack the UPE, instigating the First Tavaran War. So this was 11 years after the Xi'an were discovered, we ran into the Tavaran. You imagine that. Now, that's not that long of a period of time between discovery of both species. But we were already probably ramping up war production to deal with the Xi'an, so we were pretty well, into production of warships when the Tavaran decided they were going to attack us. In 2542, the UPE's victory at the Battle of Idris IV marks a turning point in the war. This is due in large part to the bravery of an ambitious young officer named Ivor Messer, which will lead to the Messer era later on. But this is just a year after the Tavaran species was discovered. So obviously this war, we were able to respond very quickly. Talking about long distance traveling and space and stuff, that is super fast. In 2546, which is 5 years after the war started, the First Tavaran War ends with humanity being victorious. Commander Ivor Messer is promoted to High General due to his leadership during the war, eventually restructuring the government into the United Empire of Earth, anointing himself as Imperator and beginning the Messer era, a controversial age of military expansion and political corruption. So the Messers, they pretty much would control the empire for a long time. It's kind of like the Roman Empire, where they would control the empire through their bloodline for quite a while. And in 2603, the Second Tavaran War begins as Tavaran insurgents attempt to retake their home world Xi'an, or Elysium 4 as we call it, but it's called Xi'an to them. Or Jalen, I don't know. I don't know the correct pronunciation there. In 2610, the Second Tavaran War ends. So this one lasted longer. It lasted 7 years. Humans are once again victorious, and the Tavaran abandon their culture to be fully assimilated into the UEE. But they're really second-hand citizens for most of their time, all the way up into 2950 into this era. They're finally getting some, identity back. Maybe this will discuss that a little bit more. In 2681, there's first contact made with the Vandal species when they attack a fringe township in Orion. Of course, the Vandal, that's going to be our biggest nemesis. Everybody hates the Vandal, and they hate everybody. So, except for maybe the Banu. But yeah, that's our first contact with the Vandal is 2681. And the Battle of Orion forces the UE out of the system. The first Vandal kingship is sighted. So when the kingship comes in, it pretty much cleans house. And we are forced to flee. This is just a few years, 20, 30 years almost, 31 years after our first contact in the Orion system. They come back and they completely take over the system. They force us out. Scary, isn't it? We weren't ready for it. I guess after the Tavaran War, we brought some of our production down, but I don't think so. We were under the Messer era, so they were really ramping production up and keeping warships out in the field. So why are we getting whooped by the Vandal? And that's something we're going to have to figure out probably during Squadron 42. That'll be one of the things that they discuss. In 2789, Terra Senator Terence Akari brokers an independent peace accord with Xi'an Emperor Kree. Imperator Messer IX refuses to sign it. So there's some breakup between Terra and Earth, between the Imperator and the Senators. This is something that happened in Rome quite a bit as well. So it's kind of, following in that footstep. You know how history repeats itself. This would be definitely a case of history repeating itself in some form or fashion. In 2792, after witnessing the genocide of a developing species, the people of the UEE rise up against the Messer regime, and the government is overthrown. The Messer era ends, and Aaron Toy of Earth becomes Imperator. So it's still an empire. They're still structured as such, but the Messers are no longer in charge. I'm sure there's more checks and balances put on that Imperator, so the senators have more say, and the people probably have a little more say. Maybe not much, but a little. But that's not too long after this whole situation with Terra. You're talking 3 years. Then in 2793, a year later, Imperator Toy and Emperor Kree ratify the Line Pact, bringing the Cold War to an end by dividing the systems that made up the tense battle line between the two cultures, and an era of diplomacy and respect between the species is ushered in. So there's still some hard feelings there a little bit on the Xi'an side. They're warming up, but in 2793, pretty much the Cold War is over, and both sides have kind of let their defenses down just a little bit. They're making progress here. 2795, construction of the Ark, an orbital platform unbound to any one location, species, or government, begins. The Fair Chance Act is ratified, making the terraforming of planets with developing intelligent life forms illegal. So, yeah, that was a problem beforehand, and they tried to outlaw that. My question is, can anybody buy a terraformer? Or several? And if they can, how can you prevent a private company from doing it and getting away with it? Something to think about. 2800, Marshal Leon becomes Imperator. The Ark is completed. We'll talk about the Ark in another series, I'm sure. 2872, seeking to end the need for terraforming, construction of Synthworld, an artificial planet capable of sustaining life, begins. Synthworld is a really interesting topic as well. That's another one that we might need to do in a whole nother video. In 2945, the attack on Vega 2 marks an escalation to the ongoing human-Vandal conflict. After successfully defending the system, Admiral Ernst Bishop implores the Imperator and Senate to officially declare war on Vandal. So this is 5 years before where we are right now. This is where Squadron 42 is going to take place. Pretty interesting. 2945. Keep that in mind. That's when we're going to declare war on the Vandal. That's where Squadron 42 will take place. And just 5 years later is where we are in the PU. So in 2946, Suj Kalsi secures a seat in the UAE Senate, becoming the first Tavaran to hold this level of political office. Really like this guy. He's pretty interesting, and he's got a good head on his shoulders. Wonder if he's got any ulterior motives. I mean, obviously, being a Tavaran, he wants to secure more freedoms for his people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But does he have any kind of revenge in heart? I don't think he does. Like I said, he seems to be a pretty good dude. So we're going to find out more about Suj Kalsi throughout the lore teams delve into it. And in 2950, the upcoming Imperator Election, where citizens will decide the course of the Empire, will take place for the years to come. So the Imperator is elected for 10 years. So we will get to elect one. I say we loosely. We will get to vote, and they will pretty much decide who wins it with or without our votes, but our votes may actually influence something to do with the election. It'll be interesting how this plays out. They're going to play it out throughout the entire year this year. So they've already got it whittled down to a handful of prospects for Imperator. I'm sure the election will be coming up probably about the same time as the election here in the United States, so in November. Maybe, I really hope that they have this election a little sooner, like in October, whenever 311 comes out, maybe. And we'll find out a little bit about how that's going to end up. They could save it for the very end of the year. That would be fine, too. But it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out with the Imperator election. There's some real radicals in there. Some folks that seem really good, like they have a good head on their shoulders. So I'm looking forward to that. But this is their little article about foundational moments in human history. I really enjoyed reading this. I hope you guys enjoyed me going through this with you guys. It's kind of a long video for a lore video, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that like button if you like this video. I know some of you really want to see more of these. Let me know in the comments if you still want to see more lore videos. I've got a lot more that I need to do. I just haven't gotten around, and maybe when I'm taking care of my grandmother here in the next week or so, I can put some more lore out there for you guys, because that would be perfect time to do it. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to my channel before. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to all you guys who've been viewing my videos. You guys rock. I really do appreciate it. And, you know, if you're interested in supporting this channel, definitely sign up for my Patreon or for my YouTube membership program. The YouTube membership program you can get in for as little as $1 a month, and that really helps me out. I am still working in my current job, but the good news I have is I'm moving on to another job at the end of the month. We'll talk more about that too. But every little bit definitely helps. I would love to be a content creator full time, and you guys are going to help me get to that point. And I'm also trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So thank you to everybody that's been contributing. You can also contribute by watching the ads all the way through, clicking on the ads. You know, you don't have to buy anything, but that certainly helps. All that will help fund this channel and help me out tremendously. So thank you to everybody that has. Thank you to all my Patreons, all my YouTube members. Thank you everybody that's been watching the videos. You guys are awesome. I'm Mud Dog with the Texas Space Navy, and I'll see you out in the verse.